Hey everybody, welcome back to episode number 2 of TRU Talks. And tonight I have myself here and Miss Hadassah has joined me to continue talking about the traumatic series that Tim has been preaching on for the last 3 weeks. So last week, Tonda and Dennis got to share a little bit about, their take on the traumatic series. And so we are super excited to share tonight, mainly because most of you know, if you know my story, if you know anything about Hadassah's story, you know that we both have experienced some trauma in our lives. And so we're excited, aren't we?
We are. We're really excited.
So something that Tim talked about on Sunday, I was kind of looking over his notes, and he had wrote that the word trauma in Greek literally means wound, and Jesus uses the word to describe the care of the Good Samaritan showed to be up traveler. The Good Samaritan showed to be up the traveler on the road to Jericho. I'm sorry, I don't know why I had such a hard time reading that. So when, Hadassah and I were talking, and we were just talking about how trauma, and I feel like there's a stigma on the word trauma, and it's kind of overlooked, especially in the church. And you have people that are coming into church that have never been in church ever in their lives, and they're not used to that type of culture, and they have a lot of trauma, and it's not effective for us to be taught that, we get saved and then, everything is fine, because that is not reality at all. So I really love that Tim has been dissecting this for the last 3 weeks, because it really has I think opened up a lot of eyes for people, and we've had some great feedback, even from people that haven't been here, in person, people that have been watching online, and other people that have been sharing it to some of their friends or to people that they think it could help. So it's been really exciting, and so both of us, like I said, have experienced trauma, and there was things that happened to me, or that I experienced, I guess, when I was younger, that I didn't necessarily think was trauma until a therapist actually pointed out to me that it was trauma. And I was like, I think that word seemed, when I think of something that's traumatic, or when I think of trauma, I think of blood for some reason, and scary, and a car wreck or something, somebody terribly wounded, I think of trauma. So, but trauma can be you witnessing something as a child that a child that age shouldn't see. That is trauma. So when I had a therapist that pointed out to me things that I had been through, then I was actually able to address it and see it for what it is. Okay, this is trauma, and how do we deal with it, and how do we move on from here? And because if we don't ever address it and face it and kind of work through it, then it just kind of stays there in the back of our minds, and we just kind of, push it back. And then most of the time it leads to some type of unhealthy habit, like drug addiction, or, whatever the case is. So Miss Hadassah is going to share just a little bit, maybe, or whatever you want to share. You can share about, your experience with trauma.
Well, I have to say that I agree with you when it comes to not knowing as a child that, you shouldn't have seen or you shouldn't have heard, because it's something that you might go through daily that might be normal to you. And then when you bring it out and you tell people, they'll let you know that it's not normal whatsoever. And then you start to recognize it for what it is. And that was kind of what I dealt with as a child. Just I was sexualized a lot as a young lady, and I carried that throughout my life, and I just thought that was my worth, and that is how I get people to like me. And that continued into my adult years, and I ended up being an exotic dancer and ran into some people that I thought, had good intentions for me, that were going to help me through that sort of life, but it ended up being much worse. And I ended up getting trafficked throughout Texas and New Orleans. And I don't know, it was just really crazy. And I feel like what you said earlier is people, they expect once you get saved and that, you start to know Jesus, that all of a sudden, you don't have trauma anymore. Yeah. And that everything is fine, and, just lean on God. And that is true. You do lean on God, but I don't think people understand that there's a big process to work out to get past that trauma and to heal from that trauma, because some wounds are cut really deep. Yep. And you'll think that they're fixed, but there's something underneath of there too, under that wound as well. And it's kind of like an onion. Yeah. You got to pull back the layers.
Yeah. And I think that, I was thinking about being comfortable. So not only is it uncomfortable when you've come out of, and not just drug addiction, this is like any type of, like, we've all gone through things, and everybody I'm sure will go through like unfortunate things in their life, whether it's a relationship, with a man or a woman or a family member, or a job that you didn't like any of that, anything that happened, anything could happen, I feel like, with one of those situations that could, be traumatic. So, you come into a place, and I think that's why we really tried to create an environment for people where there's zero judgment, because it is really hard for people to be comfortable. And the thought of because Tim, I know, has been talking about therapy and stuff too, and, people finding freedom in therapy is okay. But it's how do you even get to that point? How do you get to the point where you feel comfortable enough to call up a therapist and make an appointment? And I work at an outpatient counseling center. So to me, it's everyday thing. But when I really take a step back and I think about the courage that it takes to, especially when you feel like you're under a microscope, or people are watching you, or maybe you've been to church before, so they're oh, she goes to church, but she's going to therapy too. There's such a negative stigma on things that is really unfair to people, because it's okay to seek some type of outside help. So, and there's great Christian therapists too. Yeah. So that's always an option. But back to we want people to feel comfortable. It's so important for people to feel comfortable enough to take the first step and to want to get help, because I don't know, I wasn't really the biggest, I was forced into getting help. I was never pick me, I want to address all my trauma. Absolutely not. That's why I did drugs. So I didn't have to think about it. And a lot of trauma happened through that too, as if we didn't already experience enough just in life in general. Then, we put ourselves in these terrible situations, and Hadassah, that, was part of human trafficking, and all of the trauma that I can only imagine that she experienced. It's just a lot. It's a lot. So it's hard for people to find the courage to be okay, let's just talk about it, because we want to suppress it and think that it will go away. And I don't ever want to portray that Jesus can't heal our hearts and renew our minds, because he absolutely 100% can. I think the whole point is that it's okay if you need more.
I agree with that. And I did try to seek help at this one place, and it was faith-based, and they basically told me you shouldn't get on medication. We're totally against that. You shouldn't do that. But that was something that has helped me improve with my mental health, because mental health is a really big thing, especially with going through trauma. Yeah. And, like Abby said, I do feel like it's important that if those are the things that you need and the steps that you need to take that you think will help you when it comes to addressing your trauma, then I think it's okay. And addressing your trauma can be traumatic as
Yeah.
well.
Heck yeah.
But it's, like I feel like Tim said, you have to address it. You have to, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. You kind of just, it's your opponent. You got to
you got to get out the boxing gloves.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. And so you have to be, I remember him talking about that. He asked some questions. I can't remember exactly, but I was trying to find the question. But, like I was saying, it's easy to just to say I've shut the door on that. Like that doesn't have a place in my heart anymore or in my mind. Like that is over with. But and so I guess some people, that for a long time I can't say it worked for me because I started doing drugs. But, for some people, they're just like, I'm done with it and move on with their life. But they're missing out on so much more freedom if you actually do face it head on and just open the door and process it and work through it. And it's going to stink probably. And it's like Hadassah said, it's going to be traumatic itself. But the freedom that comes from that is amazing.
And it's definitely easier said than done. So don't think anything about that process is easy, because it most certainly isn't. But it's definitely necessary, to start healing. And one thing that I've been learning, we have our women's Bible study on Tuesday nights, is that, this takes time. This isn't going to happen in a week, a month, 4 months, a year. This can take time, to heal from those things.
Yeah, I agree. We, that's another thing, we just want, everything. When you come out of some type of, traumatic, situation, it's okay, I got to move on. I need to get my life back on track, and, that's over. Let's move on. And, we like instant gratification. So that can't always be the case. It is a process. And that's uncomfortable too, to think about prolonging it, I guess. It's I already went through the traumatic experience and now I have to relive it basically for however long it takes to get through it. But something I was just glanced at right here that says God will send those meant to help you heal your trauma. And I think our women's Bible study on Tuesday nights has been really good for that. And we've created just a safe place for people to talk about their trauma and to open up about things that maybe they wouldn't. I mean, it's not something that you probably would just open up, at a coffee shop with your friend. This is deep, intimate conversation. So I truly believe, and I really believe that God has laid this topic on Tim's heart because, we're here to help and we want to help people through that. So I don't know. I just think this has opened up something that is going to help so many people. And this is huge. It's a huge topic that nobody ever talks about. So I really believe that anybody that has been in person that has witnessed this, or anybody that has watched anything related to the series online, has definitely watched it for a reason, And so if you are one of those people, know that, we're here to help and to guide you. And, even if we personally can't help you, we would love to help connect you with somebody that can, because there's things that I've been through that I can now help with, and Hadassah has been through things much different than I've been through, and so she can help. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And like you said, when you meet these people and God sends these people to help you through your trauma, I have to say that's so true, because I was in Alabama and I got really comfortable there, and that's, there was professionals and everything for them to help start my healing process. But when I moved back here to Parkersburg, West Virginia, I didn't have a lot of people surrounding me that knew a lot about the situation or was educated on what human trafficking was, or really knew much about it. But the cool part is that's where Tim and Abby and everybody around them comes in. And I met them. And Tonda, I remember Tonda when I was at High on Hope. I remember the first time I talked to her. She came up to me while we were listening to some worship song. And she just, embraced me and immediately was able to tell that there was some trauma in my life.
Yeah.
And ever since I met her and we've been doing this trauma series, it's been beautiful. And I've been able to, really go look my trauma straight in the face. And like I said, this isn't, this 3-week series isn't going to heal me all up, but
Right.
it's definitely, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I believe Tim's been doing a really good job at addressing, some biblical stories that, go in with his lessons and
Right.
So much more as well.
If you don't mind, will you talk about, I was thinking about people, God sending people to help you heal. And I forget how long you were there exactly, but when you left from Texas and you stayed with Rebecca and how that chain of events, how that happened.
So, when I was rescued from Houston, Texas, this awesome lady named Kat came and picked me up, which Rebecca, she got a hold of Kat, and Kat is a part of a project that helps get women off of the streets of Houston, Texas, or just really anywhere. And so she picked me up, and Rebecca was already in contact with my mom, and she told my mom, yes, she can stay there. And I wanted to go home.
Right.
But my mom came down, because she was in Kansas City, Missouri. My mom came down and was like, no, you're staying. And I was like, this isn't fair. I want to go home, tell my friends and family. So, and God does send these people in your life, because if any of you guys know who Rebecca is, such a tender, beautiful, patient, graceful soul.
Yeah.
Like, I could go on and on and on. And I was really, really still caught up in my mess. She tried her best to get me into certain parts of the church that she lived by to kind of help me. And not that they weren't great, but it really wasn't what was best for me and my healing. I
Right.
needed something much more than that.
Right.
Rebecca was amazing. I remember just being in bed for like literally 2 months straight, not going to work. I think I came upstairs, and she hates when I make microwavable food. She's super healthy.
Yes.
I would, go upstairs, make microwavable food, and then I'd get right back to my cave. My room was a mess, and this was her home. And but she was so patient and loving and graceful, because she knew that I needed a rest period, and I needed to process everything that happened, because I wasn't processing it. And then I decided to make my own decision and go back to West Virginia, because I was supposed to go back for a court date for my son. And I thought, okay, well, I got there, and they ended up delaying the court hearing. So I was just like, I'm just going to move back. I'm good. I've been gone for 6 months, and that's where the drug addiction started. And like you said, I mean, drug addiction in itself has a lot of trauma in that as well. You're not in good situations, and, in my addiction, I was taken advantage of in many different ways. So again, you think that you're numbing this trauma that you've already been through, but really what you're doing is putting yourself through more.
Yeah.
And that's what
more.
I feel like I did, and it triggered a lot of things.
Yeah. I remember, and so this is another thing that I feel like sharing on camera about trauma is, Tim mentioned before we started this tonight that, I've been to prison, and like that in itself is traumatic, and it really was traumatic, even though like nothing bad happened. Just the fact that like I went to prison, it's pretty traumatic, because I remember, being like a young age and my mom talking about people going to the penitentiary, and that's such a scary word to me for some reason, even now after I've, technically been there, I guess. And I just remember like the day that I got there, and I was like, I think I was 21. I might have been 20. I think I was 21. So I was like a baby, and pulling in through those gates and like seeing all of these people, and I was like, oh no, what did I get myself into? And so not just because like nothing bad happened there, like I didn't witness anybody like, getting beat up, or I didn't get in fights or anything like that. Just the experience in itself, and, the other people that were there that have, experienced trauma, that have, made them commit crimes that are not pleasant, and just everything that goes into it is traumatic. So, and thankfully that kind of propelled me into wanting to stay sober. And I was like, there's absolutely no way I'm ever going to do anything to come back here. So, and my sister is actually there now, and I was talking to her today, and I could just like hear all of the noise in the background and stuff, and it's like, it like triggers that, like I just remember, like I can like smell what it smells like in there. So, and obviously that was like a bad situation, but like I said, it propelled me into finding true freedom. So if we really if we don't let it drag us down, I guess, and we're like, okay, I've been through this, like it wasn't pleasant, it sucked, I hate that part of my life, or I hate that I had to go through that, but I'm going to take it and work through it and use it for good, because now, I get to help other people, and I can connect with people that, have been to prison and been through things that I have been through. And same with Hadassah. She, am I allowed to share what your dream is?
Yeah, okay.
She shared tonight that, she has a dream to, start a ministry that helps women that have been abused. And so she has like a special thing that she can use to help people. So even though we've been through these and had these terrible experiences in life, it doesn't have to all be doom and gloom. We can use it, for good and for God's glory, and that's what He wants us to do with it. So, another little blurb that I see right here, it says, God has placed things in you that are way bigger than you can see, but you must be healed first. This is why your healing is so important. So,
yeah,
because I took the time to heal from things, and it's a process. So there's still things that creep up that I'm like, oh yeah, that should probably be addressed, So it doesn't happen, like Hadassah said, overnight, and it probably will be a lifelong process, honestly. But we were put here to help other people. So, and God would never let us go through something that He couldn't heal us from and couldn't bring us out of to use for His good. So I truly believe that no matter what you've been through, I don't care how bad, how traumatic it was, like there's somebody else that needs you to be healed, right, so you can help them.
It's definitely super important, to start that healing process, because I believe that once you get into that healing process, you're going to be able to walk in everything that God has for you. And it's really hard when you're still broken, to be able to do that, because you have outside forces, and it really, what's the word I'm looking for? It really has an impression on your life. I've definitely, because I am still broken, because I am still working towards that healing process, there's still things that are open with me that I'm still trying to work through. And, sometimes people can see that outright,
Yeah. It's a process.
It is.
I feel like that's been like the word. It's a process. Mm-hmm. We were talking about that at Bible study the other night, and everything is a process. And I kind of like the word. So I think maybe we will start to wrap it up with, Tim had went through these questions at the end of the sermon that were really good, just to kind of make you think a little bit about your own trauma, your own life, whatever's going on. And I really like the question about identity that says, are you wrestling against God to let go of things and step into your new name? And that was wow, because I feel like we will identify ourselves from our trauma, and I know Tim talked about this a lot, and we let that be our identity, and that is not true. I am not the person that I used to be. I'm not what I experienced. I'm not what I used to do. And so through my healing process, you know, I have found my new identity in Christ, and it's literally the complete opposite of, you know, what I used to be. So, you know, I would ask yourself that, you know, are you wrestling against God to let go of the things and step into what he has for you, because there's just so much more. When you think about your life now,
Mm-hmm.
when you think about like those 2 months you spent, or 6, however long you spent
Yeah.
with Rebecca in bed, you know, and it was probably like, I know for myself, when I was in prison, I guess when I got to prison, I had like a little glimmer of hope, because I was like, I'm going to figure this out, you know? But there had been times where I was like, I just don't know how I can turn this around, you know?
Yeah, I totally felt that. And one of the things that I did that I thought was a good idea at the time was put a mask on, and
Yeah.
I was around a whole bunch of people that went to church, and I was like, okay, I'm healed now, you know, because I thought that that's how it needed to be. You know, that's kind of how it was interpreted to me, you know, from other people, that, okay, I go to church now, I got to act like I'm fine.
Yeah.
And that's just not the
Yeah.
truth, you know?
Yeah. So, we really appreciate you guys joining us tonight. And I don't know who will join you next week, so it'll be a surprise for the next round of True Talks. And we talked a lot about the Bible study, so I feel like if you live in the area, if you live in Parkersburg or close to Parkersburg, or you're willing to drive here on a Tuesday evening at 6:30, we would love for you to join us. It is a woman's Bible study, so I'm sorry if you're a man, you cannot come. And it really is going even deeper into what we have been talking about. So we'd really like for you to join us.
That's great.
We are doing a book and a study guide that goes along with it. So if you're interested in knowing what it is, you can reach out to one of us, and we would be glad to help you. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.